This is it, the ultimate showdown of Australian sporting athletes. Who has the deepest bag in Australian sport? I've compiled, off the top of my head, the 32 deepest Australian sporting bags list and put them into this knockout bracket. Now you might be asking, deepest bag? What the hell does that mean? But basically, it's just when someone dominates at something. Like whenever Paddy Mills is in a Boomers uniform, he's just in his bag. I can't explain that. Look, I haven't taken this bracket lightly. The names have been randomly seeded to avoid bias. There is icons like Peter Siddle on his birthday, backwards hat Nick Kyrgios, Ash Barty in any sport that involves swinging, and 05 Benji Marshall. Those names are just the tip of the iceberg, and if you don't like who I've selected, do not worry. I'll be redoing this via YouTube livestream on this date right here, where you the viewers will get to pick the athletes and vote for who you think has the deepest bag. But for now though, this is my opinion because it's my channel and we're going to be playing it by my rules. First up we have State of Origin Dane Gagai versus 2015 Jonathan Thurston. Dane Gagai is basically the Blues kryptonite, always turning up for big Origin games. He's just goated in a Maroons jersey. Few have done it better. On the other hand, 2015 JT bringing the first premiership to North Queensland, winning a Dally M medal, a Clive Churchill as well, and giving us those two infamous NRL Grand Final moments. For me though, with this one, I have to go with 2015 Jonathan Thurston. That bloke is just too elite. Our next matchup, Shane Warne with sunscreen on versus 2010 Mark Webber. Look, there aren't many athletes as formidable as Warney with sunscreen on. Even if it was just a bit on his lips or the entire face, there was no stopping that bloke. The ball of the century came with sunscreen on, need I say more. 2010 Mark Webber though was a beast in his own right. With 4 wins across the season, I honestly think if he was given the preferential treatment, he would have won a title at Red Bull. In saying that, there's very few more iconic players than Shane Warne, especially with sunscreen on, so I have to give it to him.
Just look at that sunscreen.
Next up, it's 2012 Benny Barber versus headband Steve Smith. Who can forget 2012 Ben Barber? The bloke was unstoppable. For real, like remember this full field try. One of the best single seasons ever in the NRL. If we have a look at headband Steve Smith though, this bloke was an absolute machine with a headband on. Look at these centuries, obviously a top 5 batsman of all time. Like when Smith gets deep in his bag and starts twitching between every delivery and jumping on his leaves, you know it is over. For this one though, just because of the sustained greatness, I have to go with headband Steve Smith.
Look now! Look now!
Next up we have 2009 Jared Hayne versus backwards hat Nick Kyrgios. Not gonna lie, this was a tough one. Backwards hat Nick Kyrgios was an absolute freak at the Aussie Open, especially in the doubles, winning the title there, and was a finalist at Wimbledon with that backwards hat. Easily one of the sauciest tennis players of all time. But 09 Hayne was truly special as well. I think he had like 7 man of the matches and led the Eels to the grand final in what is one of the greatest individual seasons ever. I could not split it between the two. So let's see who the randomizer selects. Nick Kyrgios versus Jared Hayne. And it's Nick Kyrgios into the next round. Next up, we have a wetsuit Ian Thorpe versus Robert Whittaker, not against Adesanya. I'm supposed to say Adesanya. Thorpe was an absolute beast in that full wetsuit. Absolutely unstoppable. 5 Olympic golds, 9 Commonwealth golds, and 23 world records set. One of the greatest swimmers ever alongside Michael Phelps. Whittaker, on the other hand, was a pioneer. Our first Aussie UFC champion, setting the foundation for future Aussie UFC legends. Against everyone except Adesanya, he's unstoppable, but I have to give this one to the legendary Ian Thorpe. He goes on to the next round. Next up, we have Peter Siddle on his birthday versus Paddy Mills for the Boomers. Now this is a tough one. 2 icons in the Australian sporting scene. 2 absolute Aussie legends. Peter Siddle on his birthday with a hat-trick at the Gabba. I mean, the collar was up, fist bumps were on. I remember watching this as a kid and going absolutely berserk. A caught, a bowled, an LBW, a total of 6 wickets. What a legend.
He's given him! He's given him! Peter Siddle's got a hat-trick on his birthday!
Paddy Mills was also a king though, the man that led Australia to their first ever medal in Olympics basketball, where he dropped 42 points in the bronze medal game. He's honestly one of the best players in the world in a Boomers jersey. He led the scoring in the 2012 Olympics, beating out KD, and has been Australia's best every Olympics. There aren't many more in their bag than Paddy Mills for Australia. I have to give this one to him. Paddy Mills, on to the next round. In the final two brackets for the left side, it's the 2005 Benji Marshall season against Josh Giddey inbounding the ball. Now this might be a strange one, but don't worry, I can explain. Now if you've seen this channel before, you know I'm Benji Marshall's bloody biggest fan and he's blocked me on Instagram, #FreeAlphaKai. But I still love this bloke. The 2005 season was insanely special, which was topped off, of course, by that flick pass in the grand final, one of the greatest moments ever in rugby league history. Now, Josh Giddey inbounding the ball might be a surprise on this list, but don't get it twisted, guys. This guy is an absolute goat at inbounding the ball. He's an absolute aficionado when it comes to inbounding the ball, probably the best in the NBA. There's no deeper passing bag than Josh Giddey's in the NBA currently. I mean, you can watch a 15-minute highlight reel of the bloke passing. I did that yesterday. It's a bit strange. In all seriousness, though, I got to give this one to Benji. He changed the game.
What do you mean breathe?
And with our final two participants on the left side of the brackets, Vodafone James Wincup versus Alex Volkanovski's entire career. A bit of an underrated one here for the V8 Supercars fans. Jamie Wincup in the Vodafone car did not lose. I mean, he really was in his bag winning the 08, 09, 11 and 12 V8 Supercar championships. He absolutely dominated the sport. That car is absolutely nostalgic to me too. Talking about domination though, we have to talk about Alexander Volkanovski. Undefeated in the UFC and is the pound for pound king currently. He's already defended his title 4 times and is looking for a second title. There's a reason I have put his entire career on this list, because Volk stays in his bag. That bag is deep. I think he might be lost in there. Somebody help him. No, seriously, if we could get emergency services out here. This one has to go to Volk though. So that establishes our left side of the bracket for the second round. Let's head over to the right side now. And on the right side, it's Stephen Bradbury when everyone falls. That's a deep bag, don't get it twisted. Versus Australian goalkeepers in World Cup elimination qualifiers. This is a tough one. Both monumental moments for Australian sport. Stephen Bradbury did the impossible winning gold in Salt Lake in 2002. I know the title I've given him is a bit of a joke, but Bradbury is really a legend. He's the best Australian skater ever. And he would work incredibly hard to qualify for that Olympic final and to win gold. Australia's first skating gold ever, by the way. On the other hand, you've got Mark Schwarzer and Andrew Redmayne, who sent Australia both to World Cup under extreme circumstances. The Socceroos had not been in a World Cup for 32 years before Schwarzer pulled out 2 enormous penalty stops. Redmayne had helped an Australian side that had no business qualifying for a World Cup by making the game-winning penalty save. Both iconic moments in footballing history. For this one, just because of how iconic Stephen Bradbury is in Australian sporting culture, I have to go with him. Good on you, Stephen.
Bradbury!
The next matchup is Asian Cup Massimo Luongo versus 2017 Dustin Martin. If you aren't familiar with soccer, you may not know that Mas Luongo is the bloke that carried Australia to its first Asian Cup title, scoring a goal in the final and being named Player of the Tournament. He was truly a superstar. A real wonderful time to be a Socceroos fan. Probably one of the best individual Socceroos performances ever in a single tournament. 2017 Dusty, though, was a different animal. He won every award you could win that year. A Brownlow, a Norm Smith medal, and a premiership. I don't even watch much AFL, but even I know that Dustin Martin season was something special. For this one, I don't have much choice. I have to go with 2017 Dustin Martin. So for this one, it's people named Cameron Smith in sport versus Timmy Cahill in the air. Look, guys, I'm going to be honest. There is a lot of bias in this decision. Both Cam Smiths have been at the top of their respective sports. I mean, golfing Cam Smith won a major, and NRL Cameron Smith is arguably an immortal. But Timmy Cahill in the air, there aren't many deeper bags than that. At the one specific trait, there is no one better in Australian sporting history at heading a ball. And he's also the greatest Socceroo ever, so even if you don't like it and it's a bit biased, I have to give this one to Timmy Cahill. I'm sorry, guys, but I just do. I love that man.
He tees off. Timmy Cahill sliding out back. Oh, get fucked! Get absolutely fucked!
Next up is Ash Barty in any sport that involves swinging versus Craig Lowndes in Bathurst. Ash Barty may be the most hand-eye coordinated person on earth. You give a swinging instrument and a ball and there is no one better. I mean, a 3-time Grand Slam champion and world number 1 in tennis, a professional cricket player, as well as some appearances in golf, Barty has done it all. One of the greatest Australian athletes ever. Lowndesy, though, made Bathurst his domain, winning it in 96, 2006, 7, 8, 10, 2015 and 2008, only Peter Brock compares on that humble mountain. He's a legend in Australian motor racing. But for this one, I have to go with Ash Barty. She's just an absolute star. I don't know why she retired. She should come back. We miss her. For this next one, it's Gary Ablett's Bloodline versus Hawthorn Lance Franklin. It's a bit of a shame that the randomizer has put two legendary AFL names against each other, but it is what it is. That Gary Ablett Bloodline is something special. The best father-son duo in AFL history, both arguably the best players in their respective eras. Senior had 3 Coleman medals and a Norma Smith medal, whilst Junior had 2 premierships and 2 Brownlows. Lance Franklin's reign at Hawthorn was also something special though. 2-time premiership winner, a 4-time Coleman medalist, and an 8-time All-Australian. This one is particularly tough, but I have to go with the Gary Ablett Bloodline. I mean, that's 2 stars. I mean, you can say it's unfair, but it's just a bracket list. I don't make the rules. I just work here. Next up, we have 2 men that are good on wheels. First up, Daniel Ricciardo in a Red Bull, and 2011 Cadel Evans. Red Bull Danny Rick is unstoppable at times, an overtaking genius who has excelled with wheel-to-wheel combat. We have gotten some tremendous wins like his race wins at Monaco and his first in Canada. Ricciardo has one of the deepest overtaking bags in a Red Bull and was very entertaining. Cadel Evans 2011 can be considered one of the greatest sporting accomplishments in Australian sporting history though. Winning the Tour de France, an accomplishment only one other non-European had accomplished. I won't lie, I know a little about cycling, but I know that Evans is probably one of the most successful cyclists we've ever had, and it cannot be understated, so Cadel Evans takes this one comfortably and heads on into the next round. With the final 2 matchups on the right side of the bracket, it's 21-22 Ashes Scotty Boland versus 2000 Kathy Freeman. How good was MCG Scotty Boland with a 6-wicket haul of 7 runs, a historical Australian cricketing moment? I mean, that line in itself will go down in folklore. He had an excellent rest of the Ashes too, and in the uphill battle Boland faced to ever make the Aussie squad made the moment even more special. Kathy Freeman's Sydney 2000 was truly special, an incredible moment in our sporting history as well. One of the more unifying moments in not only Australian sport, but our history. A start of a new millennium, an Aboriginal and Aussie athlete that truly brought Australia together. Both iconic moments, but I personally have to go with Kathy winning her home gold medal with all the pressure on her. Kathy Freeman wins this one. For the final matchup of the first round, it's US Masters Adam Scott versus 2015 Finals Matthew Dellavedova. Adam Scott win at Augusta in 2013 was truly something special.
There it is! Adam Scott!
His first major championship. After falling short numerous times throughout his career at majors tournaments, it was a huge relief for Scott and a major moment for Australian golf. Delhi's 2015 finals performance was iconic as well though. He showcased that gritty Australian nature, out-hustling everyone in the finals and had Steph Curry clamped for a few games after Kyrie went down. The most memorable performance possibly in NBA finals history from an Aussie. Unfortunately, Delhi did not win those finals, and Scott did win those finals, so Scotty is going through to the next round. This idea was spawned off TikTok and it blew up, so I thought I'd bring it over to YouTube. Check out my TikTok right here for more silly content like this, I guess. We now head into the first matchup of the second round. It's 2015 Jonathan Thurston versus Sunscreen Shane Warne. Now, I'm not going to go in depth about everyone's background. We know what everyone is bringing to the table now. In this matchup, 2015 Jonathan Thurston just falls short against Shane Warne. I mean, I could have gone with the headgear for JT, but when we're comparing what Shane Warne accomplished with that sunscreen on, he's unstoppable. I don't know who's going to stop him on this list. He may go all the way. Now a matchup with 2 men that are extremely good at swinging. Headband Steve Smith, one of the great Aussie Test captains. Backwards hat Nick Kyrgios, one of the great Aussie tennis players. Both a bit psycho. Steve Smith around the crease is a real weirdo, and he's had his own controversies, whilst backwards hat Nick Kyrgios has severe anger issues and has had his own controversies. The difference maker here for me has to be Steve Smith being at the top of his sport for a longer period of time and just achieved more in his own sport. So there's a cricketing matchup in the semi-finals, should I say the quarterfinals. Again, 2 iconic Aussies that have won Olympic medals. Wetsuit Ian Thorpe versus Paddy Mills for the Boomers. Even though Thorpe dominated in swimming with that wetsuit and objectively maybe more accomplished than Paddy in terms of medals, for me personally, there was something special about watching Mills carry Australia in a sport where he'd never medalled before. Mills in an Australian Boomers uniform is just inspiring to me. He heads into the next round. Go Paddy! In our final matchup from the left side, it's 2005 Benji Marshall versus Alex Volkanovski's entire career. Now, it's pretty plain and simple, guys. Volk's going to win this one. Volk has been doing it his entire career. And, his career may not be as long as Benji Marshall's. Benji Marshall has seen large dips and quite big highs as well in his career. But Volk has stayed consistent as the pound-for-pound best in the sport currently. Next up, 2017 Dustin Martin versus Stephen Bradbury when everyone falls. Both enigmas, well known in their sports and both Australian icons, I'd have to say. 2017 Dustin Martin was an absolute freak. Not many seasons will get close to what Dustin Martin achieved in the AFL in 2017. But Stephen Bradbury is just an icon. There is a legit saying about doing a Bradbury. One of the few professional ice skaters that, despite all the odds, still medalled at the Olympic Games. I have to give it to Stephen Bradbury. This guy is just an icon. There's not much else to say. Next up, it's Tim Cahill in the air versus Ash Barty in any sport that involves swinging. What can I say about Timmy Cahill? Australia's greatest Socceroo ever. Not a player, maybe in the world better in the air. Timmy Cahill is one of a kind. But when we're talking about deepest bags, Ash Barty may be as good as Tim Cahill is in the air as she is swinging something, whether that be a racket, a bat, or a golf club. And for that reason, I have to go with Ash Barty. She goes through to the next round and heads into the semi-final. Next up, it's Gary Ablett's Bloodline versus 2011 Cadell Evans. Now, for me, the deciding factor has to be the length of time that the greatness was seen. And Gary Ablett's Bloodline is genetic. There's genomes behind it, and you can't deny that. 2011 Cadell Evans was absolutely special, but for only 1 year, Gary Ablett had kids, and then Gary Ablett again was good. And I bet you Gary Ablett's kids are good. So Gary Ablett through to the next round. Shout out to Gary Ablett. In the final matchup of round 2, it's 2000 Kathy Freeman versus US Masters Adam Scott. Now, both respectively probably the best in their sports. Adam Scott, our top golfer possibly of all time, and Kathy Freeman, in terms of 400 meters, probably our best female runner. It's a close call, but I think just for the historical value and an Olympic gold medal, it has to go to Kathy Freeman here. Just a monumental moment in our sporting history. She goes through to the quarterfinals.
Now only 8 contestants remain. Who's going to win this dumb video idea?
A pure cricketing matchup here. Shane Warne with sunscreen on versus headband Steve Smith. Now, some absolutely outstanding wickets. The guy did everything with that sunscreen. You could basically say this is his entire career. Headband Steve Smith. Steve Smith doesn't always have a headband on. And if we're just going to compare cricketing greatness, if you go past someone on the street, they're going to know who Shane Warne is. But they may not know who Steve Smith is. And for that reason, Shane Warne's bag is deeper. The bro had every cricketing delivery you could have as a spinner. Now, is this where the run of Paddy Mills for the Boomers ends? Now, Paddy Mills, strictly for the Boomers, is probably our greatest ever Australian basketballer. Alex Volkanovski is probably our best MMA fighter ever. It's a tough choice, but personally I have to go with Volkanovski. Paddy Mills did win us bronze, but Volkanovski got that gold on. He got that belt, so it goes to Alex Volkanovski. Now, is this where Stephen Bradbury falls? Bradbury! Ash Barty, any sport that involves swinging, it's a wide range of talent.
I just ramble here. Basically, as you can see, Barty has 2 trophies in this photo and
Bradbury
has 1 medal. So, Barty wins.
And for our last quarter final here, Gary Ablett's Bloodline versus 2000 Kathy Freeman. And purely just because I want a female all semi-final. And you could say Gary Ablett's Bloodline is stronger because it's 2 players. It's 2 athletes. But
We do not care.
And Kathy Freeman goes through to the semi-final because it's my channel and it's my rules.
And now, only 4 remain. Shane Warne with sunscreen on versus Alex Volkanovski's entire career. Ash Barty, any sport that involves swinging versus 2000 Kathy Freeman. The ultimate bracket, scientifically proven to be true.
Now, for this semi-final, you have to ask the question.
Why the frick did Chris Ross just punch Chris Ross in the Penis.
Very wrong question, but that is valid.
But is Alex Volkanovski the best MMA fighter? He may be the best MMA fighter from Australia, but Shane Warne goes worldwide. He gave us the ball of the century. He gave us hundreds and hundreds of wickets for Cricket Australia. And personally, Shane Warne with sunscreen on is just an absolute legend. So Shane Warne with sunscreen on goes all the way through to the grand final.
So basically the mic cut out here. Ash Barty can swing and run. 2000 Kathy Freeman, just run. Via that knowledge, we have to give the victory to Ash Barty, and she heads into the grand final. Look at this idiot talking with no mic on. After 20 minutes of pure garbage content, all 6 of you viewers get to see the grand final, Shane Warne versus Ash Barty, in a bracket that has been formed off pure bias. Here we go.
For the grand final, we have to break it down with some numbers. Shane Warne was the most prolific wicket taker in Australian Test cricketing history. In December 2006, he had passed 700 wickets. In 2005, he would also set the record for 96 wickets in a calendar year. I mean, Shane Warne revolutionised Test spin bowling. Before Shane Warne, spin bowling wasn't considered very cool at all. For Ash Barty, she would win the bronze medal at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. In 2018, she was a US Open winner. In 2019, she became the first Australian woman to win Roland Garros since 1973. Signing with the Brisbane Heat, she would also play in a professional season for the Big Bash's Women's League, despite having no formal training in the sport. Ash Barty has one of the greatest catalogues of any tennis player in women's history. I'm not going to lie, guys, this is an incredibly hard decision. I mean, Shane Warne with sunscreen on, an absolute freak. The greatest spin bowler of all time. And when we're talking about deepest bags, is there a deeper bag than Shane Warne with a cricket ball? I don't think there is. Maybe in any sport, that guy has mastered the spinning of a cricket ball. Ash Barty, on the other hand, incredibly accomplished in the tennis scene. And when it comes to swinging a sporting instrument, she may be the greatest ever. But in my personal opinion, I have to go here with Shane Warne with sunscreen on. Shane Warne with sunscreen on takes it. And if you disagree with my selections and even the athletes on this list, there will be a live stream where we do exactly this, but I'm going to let you, the viewers, select who you think has the deepest Australian sporting bag. Like, subscribe, and hit that post notification bell to be notified for upcoming videos. I love you all, and I will see you next time.